Neria Voss stirred in the mangled wreckage, heat pulsing through torn metal and broken bones. Her ship, a stealth pod codenamed Vale Echo, was reduced to jagged ruins, its sleek black frame crumpled against a cracked canyon wall. Smoke rose in slow curls around her, carrying the stench of ozone and oil. A breath caught in her throat. Shallow. Ragged. Pain spread from her left leg like wildfire, broken, maybe dislocated. The sky above, once velvet black, flickered red with flames and flickering dust storms. Somewhere nearby, the engine coughed one last time and went silent. She blinked against the stinging ash. Her visor cracked, the display flickering erratically, finally died. The silence that followed was too thick to be peaceful. Then, a sound. Soft. Deliberate. Footsteps. At first, she thought it was a drone. But no, too heavy. Too human. Her fingers curled weakly around her sidearm. A low hum responded, battery near drained. One shot, maybe two. Not enough. Never enough. A silhouette emerged through the haze, moving with a cautious grace. Male, tall, wrapped in layers of weather-worn gear and dark cloth that billowed like a shadow. A long-barreled weapon was slung across his back, not military issue. Civilian mod. She froze. Her body betrayed her, no strength to flee, no fire to fight. The figure knelt beside her. She could make out dark eyes beneath a half-mask, wild hair tied back with what looked like a torn comm wire. "You're lucky you're not dead," he said, voice low, unhurried. "Or maybe unlucky, depending on what side you were flying for." She tried to speak, but it came out as a bloody whisper. He tilted his head, then reached into a pouch and produced a vial of clear liquid. "Don't talk yet. Breathe first. Swallow this." She hesitated. Poison? Sedative? But her throat was already burning. She drank. It seared going down, then cooled her from the inside. "Who are you?" she rasped after a long pause. He leaned back on his heels. "Talon. Just Talon. I don't pick sides anymore." "Kareli, Special Operations," she managed. He raised a brow. "Figured. You have that, trained to kill me in 5 ways look. And you. Used to be Coalition. Now I live where their maps blur." A silence settled between them. Neria tried to sit up. Pain stabbed through her ribs. "Don't," Talon said, gently but firmly. "Your leg's bad. Ship buried a stabilizer into your thigh. I'll have to pull it out." "No," she hissed. "Not here. They'll track." "They already are," he said. "Scanners pinged 3 minutes ago. But I know these canyons. Come on." With a smooth motion, he slipped an arm under her and lifted her from the ground. She winced but didn't protest. His grip was steady. Surprisingly warm. Each step he took through the wreckage echoed with a quiet confidence, someone used to walking alone, but not without purpose. They wound through the rocks, avoiding clear paths, climbing narrow ledges she wouldn't have seen in her haze. Half conscious, she murmured, "Why help me?" He glanced down, the faintest smile tugging his lips. "Maybe I'm bored. Maybe I like saving people who crash in my backyard. Maybe I've seen too many die for causes they didn't choose." Neria blinked slowly. The sky darkened to deep cobalt above them. She felt the warmth of his chest through the layers between them. His heartbeat was slow, steady. In a way, she clung to that rhythm more than the escape. Finally, they reached a small outcropping of stone hidden behind a dead waterfall. Talon kicked aside a loose plank revealing a short tunnel. They slipped inside, and she felt the air cool. Inside was a makeshift shelter, hollowed stone walls, salvaged solar panels, and an old heat lamp that buzzed to life with a flick. Blankets lay strewn across crates. A water filter hummed in the corner. Not bad for a cave, she murmured, teeth chattering. Don't knock it, Talon said, setting her down. This cave's kept me alive longer than the war ever did. He crouched beside her, hands already at work. From his belt, he pulled a worn scalpel, sterilized it with flame, and met her eyes. This'll hurt. Do it. She bit her lip as he extracted the metal fragment. Blood welled up, but he was quick with the med gel. It hissed against the wound. You're good at this, she whispered. Trial and error, he said. Mostly error. A small laugh escaped her, against her will. For a moment, time softened. The storm outside was distant. In this hollowed rock, there was no empire, no war, only breath and skin and the shared knowledge of what it meant to be broken, and to find something worth mending. Rest, he said, pulling a blanket over her shoulders. Tomorrow, we move. And after tomorrow, she asked quietly. He paused. I don't know. Depends if you still want me by then. Her eyes closed, but a faint smile remained. And in the dark, their warmth lit a spark the war had long tried to smother. The storm had passed by morning, but dust still hung heavy in the canyon air. Talon stood at the mouth of the shelter, one hand resting on the jagged edge of the stone archway. Behind him, the soft, measured sound of Neria's breathing echoed in the hollow. She was asleep, truly asleep this time, not the pained, drifting half-conscious state she had fallen into after the crash. He let out a slow breath, eyes scanning the horizon. The plains beyond the cliffs shimmered faintly in the early light. No patrol drones. No gunships. Not yet. But they'd come. He always knew they would. Talon rubbed a hand over his jaw, scraping across 3 days of stubble. He felt the weight of the decision he had made, to bring a Kareli operative into his world of gray choices and blurred borders. She wasn't just some downed pilot. He had seen it in her eyes even before she told him her name. She was trained. Dangerous. And probably carrying something more important than a broken comlink or classified routes. And yet, he had carried her here. Fed her. Treated her wounds. Let her sleep beside the same walls that had sheltered only him for years. Yeah, he muttered to himself. You're real clever, Talon. Behind him, a blanket rustled. He turned. Neria sat up, wincing slightly, hand pressed to her bandaged thigh. Her long hair, copper-brown with threads of silver, had fallen from its tie and curled around her face. Her eyes, still sharp despite her pain, flicked up to meet his. You always talk to yourself this early, she asked, voice dry. Only when I have regrets, he replied, stepping back inside. She arched a brow. Regret saving me? He grabbed a metal cup, poured water from the filter, and handed it to her. Didn't say that. She sipped slowly, eyes never leaving his. But you're thinking it. Talon sat down on a crate across from her. He leaned his rifle against the wall and crossed his arms. I'm thinking, he said carefully, that bringing someone with an active bounty on her head into a canyon filled with exiled mercs and bandits might not be the quietest decision I've ever made. Her lips quirked into the ghost of a smile. You assume I have a bounty. He tilted his head. I assume you've got something in that ship the Empire didn't want found. She didn't answer. He didn't need her to. He stood and moved toward the far wall, where an old solar receiver buzzed faintly. The console was old tech, barely holding together with half-melted circuits and spare ship parts, but it worked. Most days. He twisted a knob and the screen flickered to life. Static, then a few scrambled voices. Grid E-73 compromised, search and recover, no trace of signal source. Talon cut the volume. Neria leaned forward. They're scanning for my ship. Yours and anything else that might have been downed in the debris field. You're not the only wreck they're trying to silence. He looked at her carefully. You want to tell me what was worth getting yourself half killed for? Neria's fingers curled around the water cup. She stared into it like the surface might offer clarity. You wouldn't believe me, she said finally. Try me. She hesitated, then met his eyes. My brother, she said. That surprised him. He hadn't expected anything personal, not from someone like her. Someone built to survive. He's missing, she continued. Went dark 3 weeks ago. Last known transmission came from a relay out here. I traced it to this quadrant. The moment I entered the sector, I was flagged. Shot down within minutes. Someone knew I was coming. Talon processed this in silence. You think he's alive? She nodded, slow and steady. And I think someone doesn't want him found. Why? Because he knows something. Her voice dropped. About Project Hollow Sunday. Talon froze. The name hung in the air like a buried landmine. Hollow Sun. He had heard whispers, even out here in exile. A shadow op so classified most people thought it was legend. Rumors of an experimental mind transfer protocol, quantum identity backups, and deep clones. A program with no oversight, no morality, only results. And now this broken woman in his shelter claimed her brother had survived it. He leaned back against the wall and let out a long breath. Well, he said. I was bored anyway. 2. They spent most of the day in silence. Neria slept again, off and on, while Talon cleaned his rifle and scanned the old comms channel for movement. A few pirate signatures drifted through, nothing urgent. No drones nearby, but that wouldn't last. At dusk, he gathered supplies, 2 ration packs, an old flask of whiskey he had forgotten he had stashed behind the heater, and a tattered scarf he wrapped around his neck. You're walking again tonight, he told her. She nodded. I'll manage. Not far. Just to a better hideout. He glanced at the walls. This one's already compromised. They'll be on us soon. She sat up slowly, testing her weight. Her hands shook as she tightened the straps on her boots, but her expression didn't waver. He offered his arm. She took it without hesitation. Outside, the canyon glowed amber. Dust storms roamed the distance like silent giants. They walked in silence, navigating switchbacks and climbing shallow ledges. Talon led them down a side route, into an old mining shaft he had rigged with heat-cloaking panels and layered traps. By the time they reached the lower chamber, the air was colder. Safer. She sat against a curved wall, catching her breath. He crouched beside her, pulled out the flask, and offered it. She gave him a look. Whiskey. Not poison, he said. Well, only if you're underage. She took a slow sip, coughed once, then handed it back. Better than the rations, she admitted. Talon leaned against the wall beside her. For a while, they said nothing. Then. I had a sister, he said suddenly. Years ago. Neria turned her head, surprised by the softness in his voice. She died in a refugee corridor ambush. Coalition blamed it on rebels. I found the security feeds later. It was friendly fire. Deliberate. They thought they were hitting a decoy cell. My sister's convoy didn't even have weapons. He swallowed, jaw clenched. She was 12. Neria's hand found his in the dark. I'm sorry, she said. Don't be, he said. Just means I stopped believing in sides. And started believing in people. He turned toward her, and in the pale light, their faces were inches apart. She didn't move away. 3. Their lips met without fanfare. It wasn't sudden, or frantic, or born of desperation. It was quiet, deliberate. The kind of kiss that asks a question and waits for the answer inside breath and closeness. Talon's hand curled against her cheek, rough fingers brushing soot from her skin. She leaned into him, eyes closed, letting the silence speak. He pulled back first. Not out of fear, just care. Are you sure? He asked. Neria nodded once. We could die tomorrow. That's the best reason I've heard in a long time. They kissed again. This time, the world around them receded entirely. The war. The ghosts. The wreckage. Only warmth. Only touch. Only the two of them, and a truth neither had dared name, that even in a galaxy soaked in fire, two broken souls could still find each other in the ash. 4. They didn't sleep much that night. Not because of fear, but because they wanted to memorize each heartbeat, each moment of peace before chaos returned. By dawn, they were dressed and armed. Talon handed her a pulse pistol he had rigged with a Corelli power cell. She turned it in her hand, surprised. Where did you get this? From someone who didn't need it anymore, he said simply. Or maybe, someone who wanted me to have it. They left the mine quietly, backtracking toward the crash site. The signal beacon in Neria's wreckage was buried deep, but if she could retrieve the hard drive, it might hold the last ping from her brother's transmission. By the time they reached the ridge above the wreckage, drone lights were circling. 3 of them. Talon cursed under his breath. Search patterns getting tight. We can't wait. I'll cover you. She paused, looking at him. Talon, if I don't come back. You will, he said, eyes steady. Because I've never met anyone so stubborn. And with that, she slipped down the slope. Talon watched, rifle ready, heart pounding. She disappeared into the smoke. He whispered her name like a prayer. Rylan Voss stood beneath the vaulted ceiling of Kether Station's lower command tower, his reflection fractured across 1,000 steel panels. His uniform, flawless, pressed, imperial blue with red sash, clung to his form like a second skin, tailored by a system that measured betrayal not in bullets, but precision. Outside the curved glass, stars shimmered like false promises. Below, the atmosphere of the planet they orbited churned with the movement of patrol drones and sensor flares. He adjusted his collar and looked down at the encrypted datapad in his gloved hands. He had read the message 5 times already. Crash report, Zeronik sector, Canyon Grid 7E. 1 Corelli signal confirmed. Identity, Lieutenant Neria Voss. Status, unconfirmed. His fingers tightened around the device until the carbon fiber creaked. His sister. Alive. Or at least, she was when this was pinged. Director Voss, came a voice from behind. He turned slowly. The woman standing in the doorway wore the same uniform, but hers bore silver sigils denoting higher authority. Vice Admiral Kess Errol, eyes like twin daggers, chin perpetually tilted as though mocking gravity. I read your report, she said. Interesting find. I'd prefer the word alarming, ma'am. Kess folded her arms. A Corelli spy survives a crash in restricted space. Your space. The same quadrant your family once owned as mining territory. She stepped closer, slow and deliberate. Now your sister, a ghost from a file we buried, shows up chasing signals you swore didn't exist. So tell me, Rylan, how much of this did you know? Rylan didn't flinch. He had trained years to master that skill. I didn't know anything, he said calmly. Until now. Kess studied him. Then let's ensure your loyalty remains, undisturbed. She handed him a slim holocard. It displayed a decrypted route, Zeronik sector, beacon remnants, and a kill on-site order issued less than 4 hours ago. Rylan recognized the signature. High Command bypassed review. Kess leaned in, voice like silk over glass. You'll take command of the retrieval team. Find her before the others do. Terminate if compromised. He nodded once, mechanically. But his heart was already breaking. 2. He sat alone in his transport shuttle 20 minutes later, watching the burn-blue horizon of Zuron 9 fill the view. Below lay scorched canyons, shattered wrecks from forgotten battles, and echoes of the life he once knew. He had been only 12 when Neria disappeared from his life. Their mother, a Kareli engineer, was executed for acts of sabotage when the Empire took control of their sector. Neria had escaped. He'd been told she was killed by rebel sympathizers 2 weeks later. But that had been a lie. One carefully placed and dutifully maintained. Now she was alive. And searching. For him. He didn't know. All he knew was this: if she had survived the crash, she would be hiding. Watching. And, likely, waiting. His hand trembled on the control panel. "Sir," came the voice of his second, Lieutenant Soren Pale, from the cockpit. "We're entering sector airspace. No heat signatures on long range. Ground statics heavy." "Good," Ryland said. "Stay low. No support unless I call for it." "Understood." Soren hesitated. "Sir, the order was—" "I know what the order was," Ryland snapped. "I don't need a reminder." Silence followed. Then, "Yes, sir." He leaned back, closed his eyes, and let the memory come. Neria, 12 years older, had once carried him on her shoulders through the old mining tunnels beneath their family's land. She had taught him how to spot fake maps and real lies. She had whispered that the world wouldn't end in fire, but in silence, if people forgot how to speak the truth. Ryland opened his eyes. "I'm not going to kill her," he whispered. 3. The shuttle landed under dusk's cover. Ryland stepped out, alone, into the orange haze. Heat shimmered off the rocks. A wrecked hull lay scattered across the ridge, half buried by dust storms. Her ship. He approached carefully, sidearm holstered but unlatched. The cockpit had been ripped open, electronics melted into slag. No bodies. Blood, but not fresh. No recent footprints. He checked the console remains. A partial power cell had been rerouted to maintain a signal trace, clever, faint, just enough to keep a beacon alive without exposing her position. He knew that trick. She had taught it to him. A static burst from his wrist comm made him tense. "Soren, sir, satellite just pinged movement near grid 7E, human signature. Possibly coalition." "Coalition?" "Mark it," Ryland said. "Do not engage." "Repeat, hold position." "Copy." Ryland cut the feed and moved toward the narrow ledge descending into the canyon. If Neria had found help, it wasn't from Kareli. That meant someone local. Or someone even more dangerous, a neutral. And neutrals rarely help for free. He paused near the canyon mouth and drew his scope lens. Scanning. There. Heat signature. 2 of them. 1 injured. 1 tall. Male. Moving north, fast, toward the Ghost Ridge. He recognized the path instantly. There was only one reason to take that route: it led to the old ore refinery. Buried. Abandoned. Forgotten. Unless, of course, someone had turned it into a shelter. He stared at the forms moving together through the brush. She was alive. And she wasn't alone. 4. By nightfall, he was watching them from the shadowed ridge above the old refinery hatch. Neria's stride was slowed by her leg, but her balance was steady. She moved with purpose, guided by the man beside her. Talon Rytha. Ryland recognized him instantly. A former coalition sniper who vanished after the Syrian incident. One of the few survivors of the Dromer withdrawal. Reportedly gone rogue. Talon paused outside the hatch, scanned the perimeter, then unlocked the entry door. Neria slipped inside. He followed. Ryland lowered the scope. "I'm not here to stop you," he whispered. Then he slid down the hill toward them. 5. Talon's weapon was leveled the moment Rylan stepped into view. "You've got one chance to explain why you're here," Talon said, voice low and deadly. "Brother," Neria whispered. She stepped forward, then stopped. Rylan raised his hands slowly. "No tricks. No call-ins. I came alone." Talon didn't lower the rifle. "You're wearing a full command badge. I know what that means." "Then you know I've seen both sides," Rylan said. Neria's eyes narrowed. "Why now? After all these years?" "Because I didn't know until today you were still alive." "Convenient." He took a breath. "You think I chose to leave you? I was 12. They told me you were dead. Said our mother betrayed the Empire. That you joined a rebel cell and died in a strike. They raised me on that lie. And I believed it." Neria looked away. "I didn't know the truth until I started seeing redacted files, your name, traced pings, a few transmission intercepts. I knew something was wrong. I started digging. Then the crash. Then your name. And I realized, everything I believed was a lie." Silence. Talon finally lowered the rifle. "But you're still part of it," Neria said. Rylan nodded slowly. "And if I walk away now, they'll think you killed me and hunt you harder." He stepped closer. "But if I help you disappear, if we fake your death, bury your tracker logs, and send back the right footage, they'll forget you." She stared at him, wounded pride and buried hope warring in her expression. "You do that?" "I already have." He held out a small data crystal. "Full command override. I used my access to rewrite the logs. As far as they know, you burned up with the ship." "And Talon?" Rylan glanced at the man beside her. "He'll still be hunted. But I can tag him as an unconfirmed rebel ghost. Enough to make them look elsewhere." Neria stepped closer. "You're risking your career." "I'm risking my life," he said. "And if it helps you live free, it's worth it." For the first time in 20 years, she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. He held her tight. 6. Later, they sat beneath the stars, drinking whiskey from Talon's flask. No more tension. Just 3 people staring into the dark. Talon looked at Rylan. "You staying?" Rylan shook his head. "They'd notice if I went dark too long. But I'll keep their eyes off you for as long as I can. And after that? I'll find my way back." He looked at Neria. "Maybe next time, I'll come without orders." She smiled softly. "Then I'll be waiting." When Rylan left, he didn't look back. But he didn't need to. For the first time in years, he felt like he was walking forward. It was a lesson branded into her during the siege of Andar's Gate, where 12 men died not from blaster fire, but from the stillness that came before it. So now, as her shuttle hovered over the burnt canyons of Zuron 9 and the comm station reported only static, she felt the unmistakable chill of foreboding. A Kareli transmission had gone dark 3 days ago. A coalition deserter's name resurfaced on patrol scans. A pilot, Neria Voss, presumed dead, pinged briefly on thermal near Grid 7E. And Yvel was sent to clean it all up. The Empire didn't reward brilliance. It rewarded control. And she had become exceptional at that. But as she stood now inside the main briefing room of the Empire's Zuron garrison, data flickering across multiple displays, her instinct screamed that something had slipped beyond the edge of that control. "Status update," she ordered. A nervous analyst across the console cleared his throat. "Scans confirm a two-body movement pattern near the refinery ruins. The Kareli signal is now inactive." "Destroyed?" "No," the analyst said, swallowing. "More like, disabled. By someone who knew what they were doing." Yvel narrowed her eyes. "Rytha." The name hissed between her lips like a toxin. She had studied him for years. A soldier turned ghost. There were classified ops in the southern quadrants marked only with the symbol of a raven, Talon Wraith's insignia. The Empire had tried to recruit him. Then tried to kill him. Now he was back. And walking beside a woman the system had spent years erasing. Yvel turned to her adjutant. Ready the infiltration unit. No heavy drops. We go in quiet. But ma'am, the lieutenant said, our orders are full force. Quiet, she repeated. They'll expect fire. We bring shadow. She didn't say it aloud, but she knew the truth. This wasn't a kill mission anymore. It was personal. 2. Night fell in jagged strokes over the canyon. From her perch in the black rock ledge overlooking the refinery entrance, Yvel watched through thermal lenses as Talon and Neria shared what looked like a meal. Too close, too synchronized. There was intimacy there. Unprofessional. Dangerous. She motioned silently to her second. 2 heat signatures. 1 limping. 1 standing guard. No perimeter tech. The second nodded. Orders. Surround the chamber. Move on my mark. Then she turned back to the scope. Neria's face appeared in profile, lit by a soft lamp, bruised but alive. So this was the infamous sister of Rylan Voss. Yvel hadn't believed the rumors when the name surfaced again. Rylan was a career loyalist, Empire-groomed, polished, predictable. But if he had sheltered his sister, it meant there was a crack in the Empire's walls. And she hated cracks. 3. They breached the refinery silently. At first, the infiltration team moved like shadows down the twisted tunnels of the old ore shaft. Yvel took the rear, trusting no one but herself to clean up the edges. She counted heartbeats. Trained breath. Felt her pulse sync with the movement. Then the alarm. Not theirs. Talon's. Somewhere ahead, a trip wire snapped and floodlights activated, a grid of fire and motion that lit up the entire corridor. Shots rang out. Contact, someone barked. Yvel cursed and surged forward, rifle drawn. She rounded the final bend and found chaos. 2 of her soldiers already down. Another pinned behind crates. And Talon Rytha, dark hair matted, rifle slung across his back, plasma knife in hand, stood between them and Neria, who was crouched at the comm console with a flare stick. Their eyes met. Yvel didn't hesitate. She fired. Talon twisted, pulling Neria behind him. The flare exploded, a blinding pulse of blue light and sound that echoed off the metal. Then silence. Again. And this time, Yvel was alone in it. 4. She awoke bound to a pipe, her weapon stripped, a single lamp humming above. Across from her, Talon leaned against a wall, arms crossed. You should have killed me, she said. I'm old-fashioned, he replied. Thought you might like the chance to talk. Neria stood beside him, hand resting on her thigh where her wound had reopened during the escape. Yvel studied them both. You're protecting her, she said to Talon. Why? He didn't answer. She's marked. The Empire won't stop hunting her. And you're just a man in a cave. Wrong, he said. I'm a man who decided not to let the wrong people write the ending. Neria stepped forward. You know what Project Hollow Sun is, don't you? Yvel said nothing. We have evidence, Neria continued. Records from a failed transfer site. Your commanders have been cloning loyalist minds into battlefield shells, erasing memories, creating copies. My brother found the files. Her voice trembled, not from fear, but truth. They're replacing people with ghosts. Yvel's face remained still. Neria leaned closer. If you help us expose it, I'll make sure your name stays out of it. But if you stay loyal to them, you'll go down with the lie. For the first time in her long career, Yvel hesitated. Just for a breath. A crack. Then, cut me loose. 5. They let her go. Not without watching her. Not without warning. But they let her go. Yvel made no attempt to harm them on her way out. She collected her gear, reset her rifle, and left the refinery at dawn. No trackers. No drones. Just wind and silence. By the time she returned to the Empire's outpost, her report was ready. Refinery clear. Hostiles neutralized in wreckage fire. No bodies recovered. It was clean. Believable. And above all, useful. She submitted it to High Command and waited. By midday, it was approved. Erased. Neria Voss no longer existed. 6. That night, Yvel stood on the platform beneath Kether's moon and looked out across the sky. Her comm pinged once. A single message from an unregistered source. Thank you. N. Yvel deleted it. Then turned toward the stars, wondering what kind of woman she might have become if she'd met someone like Neria years ago. Someone who believed in the truth. Someone who could still love, even while the world burned. Neria stood on the command balcony of the Coalition's temporary forward base, the jagged mountains etched against a crimson dusk. Beneath her, soldiers, both human and Kareli, loaded supplies into transports, tending to the wounded and rebuilding comm arrays by hand. She pressed a gloved hand to the railing, her side aching from the sealed wound. She'd healed, more or less. But the burn in her chest, the one tied to everything she'd lost and everything she'd found, remained. Talon emerged behind her, his coat billowing in the wind, hair tousled and unwashed. She could hear the slight rattle of his old rifle across his back. You should be resting, he said. I can't, she murmured. Not yet. He joined her at the railing. You think they'll believe the transmission? She asked. They will, he said. Truth like that can't stay buried forever. She turned to him. What if it does? Talon looked at her, really looked. Then we keep digging. And in his voice, she found that same quiet fire that had kept her alive since the wreck. Below them, a transport hummed to life. Rylan stepped out of it. She exhaled. They're here. 2. Rylan. He hadn't slept more than an hour since leaving Kether. The tribunal was tomorrow. His face would be broadcast to both Kareli and Empire screens, his voice layered over the recordings of Project Hollow Sun's experiments. He would become the Empire's shame. And Neria's redemption. But as he stepped off the transport and met her eyes, he didn't see judgment there. Only relief. You made it, she said, crossing the platform. I promised I would. He hugged her. Not like a soldier. Like a brother. Free, Talon. He watched them from a few steps back, arms folded. He'd never had a family like that. But watching them, he felt something stir, a strange, painful hope that he could belong to something bigger than his own scars. Neria turned and held out her hand to him. Without hesitation, he took it. 4. The tribunal. The room was small. More of a command tent with a dais, a projector, and 10 carefully chosen representatives, 5 from each faction. Outside, 100 soldiers and officers waited for the verdict. Rylan stood beside Neria. Talon stood behind them, helmet off, rifle untouched. Rylan cleared his throat and pressed the button. The room filled with flickering images. Hollow Sun schematics. Mind transfer failures. Footage of cloned soldiers breaking in the field, screaming names that were not theirs. One file was marked with Rylan's signature, proof of his access, his complicity, and ultimately, his defiance. The final audio played. This is Director Rylan Voss. I release this in violation of Imperial Law 9 Delta. Because what we have done is not defense. It is erasure. And I will not be silent. Silence followed. Then murmurs. One Kareli general stood. This changes everything. A human officer followed. If this is true, every current directive tied to Hollow Sun must be suspended. A long moment passed. Then, agreed. 5, after. They didn't win the war that day. But something shifted. Command sent envoys to independent systems. Probes stopped firing on neutral freighters. A ceasefire was called on Zuron 9. It was not peace. But it was a beginning. Neria stood with Talon under the twin moons, watching the last patrol ship vanish into the clouds. They were safe, for now. You could leave, she said. I don't want to. She smiled. Not even curious what's out there. He looked at her. You're what's out there. She leaned forward and kissed him, slow and certain, under the stars that had once watched them crash. 6. Epilogue. Rylan walked away from the tribunal without cuffs. He was assigned as liaison to the newly formed Coalition Truth Council. He'd spend the rest of his life testifying against the lies he once helped protect. And he was okay with that. Because when he looked up at the night sky, he knew one thing. His sister was alive. And hope was not a myth. Final scene. Talon and Neria climbed the ridge above the valley, no gear, no mission. Just each other. The wind pulled at their jackets, carrying dust and dreams. Neria touched the pulse crystal at her throat. It still hurts, she whispered. I know, Talon said. But I'm not afraid anymore. He took her hand. Then let's see what's beyond the next rise. Together, they walked into the night. Stars overhead. Silence around them. And in their hearts. The quiet, powerful truth of a love that survived war. That chose to.